Yeah, let's do it.
Sanders patiently running. Sanders, good cut. And another block. Sanders still going inside the 40.
NFC East champs, divisional champs, NFC champs, and world champs.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Victory Green Hour as the Philadelphia Eagles went to Chicago on Sunday and defeated the Chicago Bears 25-20 in a game that was closer than I think a lot of people thought. We certainly didn't take it that seriously on Friday as we didn't discuss the game all too much, but the Eagles did get the win and improved to 13-1. But before we talk about that, Connor, we have to talk about Jalen Hurts. But before that, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Me on Twitter at LJHarrell54. Follow the Painted Lines on Twitter and YouTube at the Painted Lines. And follow Edge of Philly Sports on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at Edge of Philly Sports or EOP Sports. And if you're with us live, let us know your thoughts on the game, the Jalen Hurts injury, and I guess I forgot to do introductions. I'm LJ, the host, and he's Connor, my co-host. Connor, we're all over the place here today, getting a little late of a start. How you doing, man?
Yeah, sorry. When fatherly duties call and the son is having a dad type of night, it tends to put things behind a bit. But yeah, let's get right into it, man. Let's start with Jalen Hurts, exactly what you were talking about. Obviously, he's got a sprained shoulder. Some reports put him out for 2 games, which likely means the remainder of the regular season at least. Then Nick Sirianni says he heals like his body isn't like your body, and I'm not ruling him out yet. And Jalen Hurts says he feels okay, he feels fine, and he's going to see how the week progresses. At the end of the day, I mean, and then, of course, Gardner Minshew left practice today. He was attending the funeral of Mike Leach. So, I mean, there's a lot going on right now. But the main thing is the play calling was absolutely excruciating. And listen, I've talked to people because of my fantasy football stuff. I've talked to people who are doctors or who practice medicine and stuff, and they say there's no real correlation between rushing quarterbacks and more injuries. But when you rush 17 straight times and take the hits that he was taking on Sunday, that's bad. And that was ugly. And to sit there and say, oh, well, Miles Sanders wasn't doing very well. His average yards per carry was better. His average yards per carry were better than Jalen Hurts. So why were we running so much with Jalen? And it's not like it was always Jalen Hurts rolling out and tucking and running. There was a lot of designed runs. And this is a really weak Russian defense. That's what frustrated me. This is a very weak Russian defense.
I want to go back to what you first said in terms of Sirianni saying that he heals better and he won't rule him out. And Hurts said that I think that's more gamesmanship than anything. They want Dallas to have to prepare for 2 quarterbacks. That takes preparation time away from from them focusing on one quarterback, because the game plan is going to be different. Regardless of what Chris Sims says, saying you can throw any quarterback in there and the Eagles will still be the same. You're not running the same offense with Minshew that you do with Hurts. Just like in 2017, the Eagles, Nick Foles did not run the Carson Wentz offense. So that's something that you have to take into account, because you're not going to run the RPO. No, most defenses aren't going to respect Gardner Minshew keeping the ball and running to the outside the way you have to respect Jalen Hurts. So if it is Gardner Minshew, we're going to see a totally different offense. And, with the talent that the Philadelphia Eagles have, if Gardner Minshew cannot win one of the next 2, he shouldn't be a quarterback. Like Dallas game is going to be tough. And Dallas screwed the pooch because they lost to Jacksonville, which was hilarious, by the way, because of a Dak Prescott interception return for a touchdown in overtime. Because that would make this injury a lot bigger if Dallas would have won, and they were still 2 games behind the Eagles. Say Dallas won and the Eagles lost and they're only 1 game out, and the winner of the game this week is in the driver's seat in the NFC East. That would have made things a lot different, and I bet you Jalen Hurts would probably be playing because he gives you the best opportunity to play. But you have a 3-game cushion on Dallas for the division with 3 games to play. All you have to do is win 1 to win the division, win 1 to clinch the bye. So I think that the Eagles are going to hold out Jalen Hurts for this week. And it's smart because if the Eagles – what is the goal of the season? To win the Super Bowl, right? The Eagles aren't winning a Super Bowl with Gardner Minshew. This is –
Tony
like,
there's a lot of people who actually are of the belief that Jalen is going to play. They're going to try and lock this down this week. I would trust.
So I think the coaches and I think the trainers and coaches have to protect the player from themselves. Let him get 100% healthy.
Yeah, and I think like people are sitting there like, I trust Gardner Minshew. You say it's one of the next 2. It's one of the next 3. You just have to win 1. While we don't want it to come down to week 18.
I say one of the next 2 because if the Eagles lose the next 2, Jalen's playing the Giants game. It won't. He's
at least playing a half. He's going to at least play to get it out of control.
If the Eagles lose against Dallas and lose against the Saints, no way Gardner Minshew starts week 18 against the Giants. That will be a Jalen Hurts game.
And we definitely don't want it to come to that. So I get why there's a lot of people who do want him to play, and why there's the proposition and it of course has to be Dallas week. I can guarantee it would be such a different conversation if it wasn't Dallas week. But the mixed reviews on both sides for Gardner Minshew and for Jalen Hurts, and what if Minshew starts winning? Like, the conversation is already getting out of control for this. And everyone's just kind of like putting in the rear view that Jalen Hurts is an MVP candidate, and then Peter Schrager's out there defending that he should be the MVP no matter what because he got 14 games and you're going to count him out for 1 or 2 games. It's not like when, Carson Wentz's season when he went down, I think, 4 or 5 games. It was a significant amount of time, a couple more games. 3 games?
He got hurt 13 games into the season. Only 3 games he missed. He still should have won the MVP.
And it's kind of looking the same way. It's looking the same way here because I understand statistically, yes, Patrick Mahomes is probably going to finish the season with higher stats because he's going to get that extra game or 2 depending on the injury. But it's really, to me, to bring it all back around to Sunday, I did not like the play calling, and me and you messaged a little bit, and there was a lot of discussion in one of our group chats with all the TPL guys, and we were saying, like, we did not like the play calling. Where's Miles Sanders? When Miles Sanders would come out, yeah, he might have a couple, 1 or 2 bad runs, but he did bust off a couple decent runs. He had an 18-yard run. I mean, it was frustrating to me. The defense struggled at the beginning, but they really began to lock things down. It felt like there was a struggle, but they weren't giving up any points. It was more the offense at the end of the day that was struggling and couldn't seem to get things going. The play calling just wasn't right. So it was just really frustrating. I don't want to see play calling like that again. We shouldn't have, out of the 17 carries, half of them had to be designed runs specifically for Jalen Hurts. And that's just putting this late in the season against a team that is known to be weak against the run. That's just putting your quarterback at risk for no reason whatsoever, in my opinion. I didn't like the play call. I thought that it was one of Steichen's and Sirianni's worst play calling offensively.
Awful. And I think the worst part was it when he got the play in which everybody thinks he got hurt. The very next play, they threw it. Like, he got up off the field very slow. I'm surprised the refs didn't force him to go to the sideline to get checked out. But yeah, the offensive game plan did not help Jalen. Miles Sanders didn't get a carry until the 6.5 minute mark of the second quarter. But the other thing that was impressive is in the fourth quarter, Jalen was still dropping dimes. He had that 68-yard pass to A.J. Brown. Now, if you remember when they got down there, the QB sneak, he didn't go straight up like he normally does. He went to the left. So that kind of tells you that, he could probably feel it when he got hit. If he does a quarterback sneak and you go straight ahead, you're getting hit on the shoulders. And if you have a shoulder sprain, that's and you can feel that on QB sneak. So if you remember that third touch, I think it was the third touchdown run, after the offensive line moved and then he snuck it, he went to the left. Didn't get touched. So that was a good thing. But you had to have a feeling that it was hurting him a little bit, but he didn't show it. I mean, again, that 68-yard pass was one of the best passes he had all day. And now I hope going forward, going into the playoffs, like Sirianni and Steichen realize, look, you have a 1,200-yard, a running back that can get up to 1,200, like might have 1,200 yards on the season. Use them. We cannot have Jalen Hurts run the ball 17 times a game. It just doesn't work that way. You're going to get your quarterback killed.
No, exactly. And you can run running backs into the ground. That's their job. That's the responsibility.
Especially since he's probably not coming back next year.
Exactly. So it doesn't matter. And if he comes back, you're only getting him back on 1, 2 years, like 3 years max, but probably 2 years. Like running back shelf life isn't long enough to give him long-term extensions or anything crazy. So at the end of the day, run him into the ground. And he's been proven very capable of doing this. And while like at the beginning, Miles Sanders may have started out slower, I don't think that it generally should have been a feat. Like, look how Chicago played. They still handed the ball off 12 times to David Montgomery. They gave it to Darian Evans twice. They still ran the ball a significant amount of time, despite where the game seemed to be going and how the situations were playing out for them. So at the end of the day, and like, Jalen Hurts took some bad shots earlier too. He took a big shot from a linebacker there earlier before the sprain. Like he was taking unnecessary shots. And at that point, if you start seeing him taking shots like that linebacker hit that happened, I would definitely have started to pull back and say, okay, let's design runs, try and stay in the pocket. Let's get a bit more comfortable. Let's hand the ball off to Miles Sanders more. That's not a position where you say, ooh, that looks like it hurt. Let's keep doing design runs for Jalen Hurts. Let's keep letting him vacate the pocket unnecessarily and run with it. It doesn't work. It's not something we want to see going forward. Yes, it is what he does best, but he has also become a long way as a passer, and we've been able to trust him a lot more as a passer recently. So we should definitely stick with what we know works, and that is Miles Sanders. And yes, Jalen Hurts mixing in the runs, the short yardage situations. You can always bet on Jalen Hurts 3rd and 1, 2nd and 1, whatever it is, the QB sneak. It almost works 100% of the time.
92%.
92%. But otherwise, you know, that's what you want to do. You use Miles Sanders, use Kenneth Gainwell. We use Kenneth Gainwell a little bit. He was inconsistent. Obviously, he always is. But those are what those guys are there for. And it's what makes the team more multifaceted. When you see that Jalen Hurts has ran the ball 17 times, the Chicago Bears defense can read more for that because they could pretty much ignore the running back position. It was pretty much a null factor for the majority of the game. And they could say, well, whatever, that's one less guy we have to worry about, or one less position we have to worry about. So, but I mean, ultimately, this going on is all coming back to, I hated the play calling. The play calling was excruciating. It was terrible. It never should have been made that easy for the Chicago Bears. And it was rather disappointing.
It also felt like they were trying to force the ball into Quez Watkins a little bit. They kept giving it, or they gave it to him a couple times on like an end around type of plays. I didn't understand that. I mean, you have AJ Brown and Devontae Smith go for over 100 yards, and they both, I mean, AJ could have went for 200. Devontae could have went for over $150. You know, Miles Sanders had a fumble, which I thought it was an incomplete pass. I didn't think he had control of it, but it is what it is. And then you were talking about the defense. They did struggle with Justin Fields early on. He had that 40-yard run where he got out of the grasp of Hasson Reddick somehow. And Hasson Reddick had a really good game. He was a couple sacks, fumble recovery, forced fumble. Like, he was all over the field. But yeah, so, and again, you know, a guy who I had mentioned last week who wouldn't be put into bad positions, Kevon Wallace, he wasn't put in bad positions because you have a team in Chicago that's not really looking to throw the ball. Yeah, the Eagles had one busted coverage late in the fourth quarter, but like it was all around. Like once they've tackled it seemed like everything started going well for that Eagles defense. It just took a while for the offense to get going, just because, like you said, the game planning, it was bad. Like, it felt like the game plan for the week was all this talk of Jalen Hurts being the system or the team. They wanted to force it's like they wanted to force it upon Jalen Hurts. Let him go out there and throw for 500 yards to show that he, and they took a bunch of shots early on that were incomplete, and it felt like they were putting it all on Jalen Hurts. It felt like Jalen Hurts was pressing just a little bit because of all the talk, him not being the favorite or the MVP. Him being a system quarterback, Micah Parsons calling him out. It just felt like the coaching staff was like, all right, well, we're going to put it on you, Jalen. We're going to come out throwing the ball, even though he couldn't feel his hands. It felt like 6 degrees out there. It just wasn't smart at all.
Yeah, and that's a good point, and I actually agree with that point. It felt unnatural. Like some of those throws, the play calling and the situation, it felt like Jalen Hurts was trying to be, I mean, I don't want to compare him to Patrick Mahomes. They're two very different people, but it felt like he was trying to be Patrick Mahomes, throwing into these extremely tight windows. It would just felt off. Like the whole first quarter, or for the most of the first half, some of the passing plays, I was left scratching my head. I just didn't feel that was like how we had normally called plays. And it's not like, oh, it was our first game without Dallas Goedert. That was game 5 without Dallas Goedert. So it had nothing to do with Goddard not being in the picture. We were able to get Calcaterra and Stoll involved in past games. And it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel natural. It didn't feel like things were flowing like they had flowed for the previous, 13 games. It felt like there was a lot. I agree with you. It felt like a lot was being forced, or a lot more was being put on Jalen Hurts to be something he's not. And I'm not saying he's not a good pocket passer. I'm just saying it felt like there was a lot more trying to force him to be a pocket passer despite 17 carries. While it seems weird to say that, he did end up throwing the ball 37 times as well. So we have to remember, it felt like they were forcing one way or the other, but the forcing was all on Jalen Hurts' shoulders and really on nobody else's shoulders. So I agree with you there. And I think that was very difficult to watch as well, and just felt not natural. The game flow didn't feel natural. Jalen Hurts didn't feel natural. Shane Steichen's play calling felt really bad. It all around, despite a victory, my biggest criticism falls on the offense for sure, play calling wise, and just the way they were forcing Jalen Hurts to just seem so uncomfortable and unnatural out there.
Yeah, and they were fortunate. I'm going to say they were fortunate to be facing a really bad Bears team, because that could have definitely been different than if they were to be facing anybody else.
I almost think if they had a better if Claypool was healthy, or Mooney was healthy, or Fields had any better, Equanimeous St. Brown left early in the game, and that was his best option out there. So I feel like if he had any viable receiving options, this could have been a very different outcome.
It could have. It definitely could have. And we'll see. We'll see what the Eagles do this week. And it's going to be tough with this week's upcoming game, because, again, we don't know if Jalen's going to play. Dallas losing to Jacksonville takes all the bite out of this game. It doesn't matter if Dallas wins. Like, they're not going to win the division unless the Eagles have lost one game all year. The chances of them losing 3 straight to end the year, slim to none. Like, there's probably a 0.5% chance of that happening.
With or without Hurts, I would like to add, because I feel confident enough Minshew can get a W, at least one.
He has to be able to, and like I said, if he can't, no reason for him being in the NFL. Let's talk about the defense. The 3rd straight game that they've had 6+ sacks. They've had 19 sacks in their last 3 games. They still lead the NFL in sacks with 55. They're 6 off the team record from 1989, I think, and that was Reggie, Jerome, Clyde, Simmons. Like, that was one of the best defenses in NFL history. Hasson Reddick has been a godsend. The one thing in the offseason when we signed him, we were both saying we don't want to see him drop back in coverage. That's what he did early on in his Arizona career, and he wasn't good. The last 3 years, his last year in Arizona, last year in Carolina, and then this year, we've seen him getting after the quarterback, and that's what he does best. He's got 12 sacks. Josh Sweat, we talked about it after he got the contract last year. Didn't do much of anything. He's really turned it on. Javon Hargrave, he started off last year really well, then ended bad. He didn't start this year off that great, but he's been fantastic. There's a chance they can get at least 4 to 10, maybe 5 if Fletcher can get some sacks the last couple. If he can get about 4 sacks the last 3 games. That defensive line, all the money that the Eagles are putting in there, they're showing why, and they've been very impressive. And they haven't had the blitz to get these sacks.
No, absolutely. In one of the situations last game where they decided to bring a blitz, the Chicago Bears, that was one of their touchdowns, was all the pressure was brought and the Chicago Bears wide open. Exactly. So, and they've done their best when rushing 4. Sometimes they bring the 5th man. If you bring the 5th man, that's fine. But it's so ironic how this has turned around, because this is the exact same front 4 that were being scrutinized, merely 4 to 6 weeks ago for not getting enough pressure, for not getting at the quarterback enough, for not turning pressures into sacks enough. And now they're literally running away with it in the league. I'm not 100% sure. I think they're 4 or 5 up on the next team behind them. That they have they have a significant gain in the sack department this year over last year, and a significant gain in the last month has been absolutely huge. They heard the criticisms, they heard the judgment, and they have gone to town. And I agree. I think Josh Sweat is becoming a lot more comfortable, and Hasson Reddick is becoming a lot more comfortable, which has definitely helped. I think Linval Joseph, Dominican Subi in there has helped, and that has also helped guys like Fletcher Cox, who doesn't play as often, but we don't realize the impact sometimes of how having those 3 guys rotating constantly and keeping really fresh is impacting the outside of the defensive line as much as it's impacting the inside of the defensive line. So I definitely agree with you there. There was so many positives to say about that. We ended up getting 14 pressures, which doesn't feel like a lot on 59 snaps. But 14 pressures, which turned into 6 sacks, ends up being huge. That conversion rate is massive. So that's something we definitely can definitely be proud of. As far as the corners in the secondary go, they weren't really tested because there was nothing to really test them. Like I said, Equanimeous St. Brown ended up having to leave the game earlier, and he was probably the best and most viable option in the receiving game for Justin Fields. Cole Kmet was pretty much shut down and kept extremely quiet. He only went 4 for 25. Byron Pringle 2 for 39, David Montgomery 3 for 38. So the fact that their top receiving option was Byron Pringle with 39 yards is definitely speaks volumes to, we don't really have to say a whole lot about the secondary. Like you said, Kevon Wallace, this was a great game to not have our second safety and our third safety, because we didn't need them. We probably wouldn't have needed them all that much in the first place in this situation. So that was a major bonus, but we're definitely going to need Kevon Wallace this week. And I don't see Blankenship being there. And obviously Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's not eligible until the Saints game. So I am a little more concerned this week.
Yeah, the injury report came out. Blankenship was a walkthrough, but Blankenship practiced, Kevon Wallace didn't. So Kevon Wallace had a hip injury, and Blankenship practiced. So I think Blankenship will be back this week. And again, it is going to be different because you're going up against a team that does have weapons, that will throw the football, and they will test you down the field. So you're not going to be asking Kevon Wallace. And the one thing I noticed, especially in the second half, Kevon Wallace kind of started playing in the box safety, being a spy on Justin Fields, which didn't allow Fields to run around as much as he did in the first half. So that was good to see from Kevon Wallace. The Eagles they lost the turnover battle, still able to win the game. 2 interceptions and a fumble, 2 interceptions by Hurts and then the fumble by Sanders. The Eagles did get 2 fumbles, the strip sack by Reddick on Fields, and then the forced fumble by Avonte Maddox. So the Eagles, again, they took advantage of the opportunities, and while they didn't have their cleanest game, whether it be with the turnovers, they did have penalties, and it wasn't the best called game offensively. You come out and get a win. Good teams find ways to win. Bad teams find ways to lose games when they're up by double digits, a couple times a year. So It's not like the Colts. I can't believe the Colts blew a 33-0 lead. I can't believe the Patriots did what they did in overtime. Like, we haven't seen the Eagles do stuff like that, which is a good sign.
Absolutely. You like, and especially, and I mean, you didn't even mention the Dallas Cowboys. I know we've talked about them, but they blew a 17-point lead too. So they blew double digit and then lost in the worst kind of way. You can't completely blame Dak. It kind of bounced off of Noah Brown and into the hands. But I mean, the Patriots playing like they were a team that was behind, and this was their last hurrah
Just
when
go to
really
overtime,
they just
like-
could have went to overtime. And then, like you said, the Minnesota Vikings game, that was absolutely insane, blowing the biggest lead. I think the record was posted 154, 1-1 for teams that were up by 30 plus in NFL history. Like, it's crazy, those outcomes in those games. But I mean, as much scrutiny as the Vikings face for, oh, I can't believe they fell behind, they should be equally praised for being able to make that type of comeback, and more scrutiny should fall on the Colts. But it feels like a lot more people want to continue.
Did you watch that game? The Colts offense didn't go stretch the field once. Everything was short. Everything was it was run, short pass. Like, Jeff Saturday, all the praise he got for beating the Raiders his first week and having a close game with the Eagles, he has not been good. He's not going to be a head coach in the NFL next year. Like, he has not been good. I know I know he's not the one calling the plays and whatnot, but he's the head coach. He's supposed to be getting them to. He has been really bad the last couple of weeks. And Matt Ryan's shot. Matt Ryan, and
maybe they do. Maybe he's built a nice culture or whatever. But I mean, you can't go on with just a culture guy who blew the biggest lead in NFL history and hasn't really done anything outside of that Raiders game. That's all that he really has to lean on. And I mean, you beat the Raiders. That's not overly impressive this year. It is for a first-time coach taking over a team that was in the situation that they were in, and they were using Sam Ehlinger as the starting quarterback, and he brought Matt Ryan back in. But then now Matt Ryan has shown over the past couple weeks that he is probably washed. I mean, they've bungled this quarterback situation so badly. Them and the Washington Commanders and the Denver Broncos went all in, so it's hard to scrutinize them too much. They made the attempt. Nobody knew Russell Wilson would fall apart this much and look this bad this season. But Matt Ryan, you could question, was a 38-year-old quarterback you're going on and you're going to try the bridge quarterback route again? At this point, if I was them, I'd pack it in and try and get a higher end pick, because the way the NFL's looking, you could be sitting at near 500 right now and have just as good of a chance of being in the playoffs as you would have of getting a top 5 pick.
Yeah, look at the NFC South. Look at it's one game difference between the Bucks, who are in first, and the Panthers or Falcons, whoever's in last. Like, it's a 5-8, and I think the Bucks are 6-8, and I think the other 3 teams are 5-9. Like, the Saints have a chance to win that division, which sucked. Like, the Eagles, we thought we were going to get a top 5 pick. The top 5 pick might not happen. The Eagles sit at 9th right now and 31 technically. If the draft were to occur this week, that's where the Eagles would be picking, and I don't think we can get a Jalen Carter or Will Anderson at those spots. So it becomes a trade chip potentially for Howie. But yeah, so the Eagles, again, now they're going into their 3rd consecutive road game. They had a hard-fought game this past week. We don't know if Jalen's going to play. In your heart of hearts, just if you had to make a prediction right now, and obviously we'll know pretty much by Friday if it's going to be Hurts or Minshew, who do you think starts on Saturday?
I think Minshew. In my heart of hearts, and we're not very professional here, but in my professional opinion, the best decision is to also go Gardner Minshew. And if this game gets bungled bad, if we get blown out of the water or something, then reconsider Jalen Hurts next week for week 17 and 18. But if Jeff McClain reports, and I saw another tweet that was somebody spoke to an orthopedic surgeon and said about 10 days of rest and recovery and icing and stuff could potentially put him in a position to be back. Like, he could be in a position to play next week if they feel that Gardner Minshew's not going to be able to pull a win out in these next couple games. So in my heart of hearts, I feel Minshew is the best route to go. Give him this X amount of days rest, plus next week we get from Saturday to Sunday. That's your 10 days. Give him a shot against the New Orleans Saints in a pinch.
And I honestly think the Saints game is more important than the Cowboys game because we have the Saints first round pick. The Cowboys game means nothing. It means more to Dallas because in order for Dallas to potentially still win the East, they need to win this game. Like if they don't win this week, they'll be the 5 seed. They can't win the East. If they want to have that 0.05% chance of winning the NFC East, they have to win. So this game Saturday means more to Dallas than it means to the Eagles. This is a preseason game for the Eagles, but we're not going to treat it as a preseason game.
And I think that the Dallas Cowboys also really want, like, a part of me almost feels like a lot of people want us to win with Minshew so that they can go at this whole system thing again and be like, see, it is a system quarterback. Look, you could plug and play anybody and it's going to work.
I think it's more of Dallas fans complaining or saying we only beat them because they had Cooper Rush in the game. Well, if we beat you guys with Gardner Minshew, what excuses are you using now? You can't use that excuse. We're not going to use the excuse of if the Eagles lose on Saturday, are we going to use the excuse that it was Gardner Minshew? No, we lost. Granted,
I'm sure we'll be able to find things throughout the game that we can pinpoint, but
the game means nothing for the most part, means nothing to the Eagles, and it could, in theory, be treated like a preseason game, which it won't. Like the only starter out will probably be Jalen. Everybody else will be. Let's see what Minshew looks like with AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, that offensive playing behind the starting offensive line, Dallas Goedert back, Miles Sanders. Obviously, it won't be as many RPOs. Maybe a lot of, if you remember the Jets game, which I was at the game last year that Minshew started, it was a lot of quick passes. Dallas Goedert owned the Jets secondary, owned the safeties, whoever was covering them. Like we'll see a lot of Dallas Goedert getting passes from Gardner Minshew, and then the defense is just going to have to come out, and this will be a game that they miss Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and hopefully he can come back by the Saints game. But that's going to be the key thing for the Eagles. Just come out of this game healthy with your starters, because you're going to have, depending on what happens, you're not going to play a real game for close to a month. And then that begs my other question. If Jalen doesn't play this week and say the Eagles win, then in theory, you don't have to play him against the Saints, and you don't have to play him against the Giants. That's 3 weeks. You have the first round bye. That's 4 weeks. The divisional game is January 5th, 14th, or 15th. We're talking close to a month. Any worries about Jalen Hurts not playing in a game for close to a month?
I mean, we kind of talked about it last week. I mean, I don't think that I'd have that big of a concern with this situation. I really wish I could sit here and say I'd want to see him this week, but I think his health is something we should worry more about. But if he's feeling a lot better for week 17 or for week 18, and you want to roll him out there for a half and make sure that he still gets an opportunity to play, I think that you should play him. You should give him that extra look, based on the fact that you're going to be off no matter what. You're going to be off for a minimum week. And if you give him week 18 off and play him in week 17, then he's going to be off for 2 weeks. So I would really have rathered him be able to play in this game and to see him in this game. And then if we win this game, not worry about week 17 and 18, maybe play him for a half, play him for a quarter, just to try and keep the rest off. But unfortunately, I don't think we're in a position where that is a circumstance for us. I think the right thing to do, no matter what Nick Sirianni or Jalen Hurts says, is to have Jalen Hurts not play this week.
Yeah, and you do know Dallas, especially after they were worried about Jalen Hurts and the Eagles this past week instead of the Jaguars. If Jalen plays, they're going after his shoulder. Like they're going to take cheap shots on him and make sure that he feels it. So like, there's no need to look. Obviously, at this point in time of the year, not everybody's 100% healthy. Everybody has nicks and bruises and is feeling it, but let him get his shoulder right. Let him play week 17. Let him maybe if you need him, play week 18. You don't want to put him out there. It's a short week. They had to fly back from Chicago. Then you got to fly to Texas, for a Saturday game. Just play it smart. With the talent that's on this team, you can still beat Dallas with Gardner Minshew. So that's that's probably what's going to happen, and we'll probably find out before our next show if Hurts is out or not. We should find out, but we'll see.
Unless he ends up a true game time decision, but I think reporters will have some indications and some feelers out there to say he's doubtful. It'll either be doubtful or questionable. If he's questionable, he's going. If he's doubtful or a true game time decision, I don't think he's going.
I also still think it's gamesmanship. They'll say he's a game time decision just so, again, Dallas has to prepare for two quarterbacks. They have to prepare for Hurts. They have to prepare for Minshew. I honestly think Sirianni knows what's going to happen on Saturday. You don't want to tell anybody because you don't want Dallas to find out. That's what
absolutely. And you know that it's going to be like you said, it's going to be a completely different game plan. You're going to lean on those running backs more to run, even though this is a really good run defense. So you're probably not, you may be forced to abandon it at some point. And I feel like you can trust Minshew a little bit more in the pocket to stand there, take some shots, make some plays. And you can also get the ball out a lot quicker. It's such a different strategy, him versus Jalen Hurts, such a different game plan that you're going to implement that, being the Dallas Cowboys, you have to consider both options as we could be looking at, look what we did with Cooper Rush. That's likely what we see them do with Gardner Minshew. Look at Jalen Hurts. How do we prepare? It's two completely different game plans. It's two completely different ways that a defensive coordinator has to look at the game.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the Eagles are 13-1. Big question mark with Jalen Hurts. We'll find out later this week. All right, so before we finish off, let's go to our unheralded player of the week for week 15 in the National Football League. And what do we mean by unheralded, Connor? We don't want Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen. We want somebody that came out of nowhere and helped this team. I say help his team come away with a victory. Sometimes you like to go with a player on a losing team. Who you got this week?
Ever since you called me out for it, I think I've done a lot better at just picking someone on a winning team. And it pains me to do this one, but I mean, it was a record-breaking comeback. I obviously had to look this way. I got KJ Osborne on a team with Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and Dalvin Cook. You have KJ Osborne going 10 for 157-1. It was an absolutely monster day for KJ Osborne. Justin Jefferson had a big day too. I think Adam Thielen was a bit more of a lesser factor than those two guys.
Yeah,
I know Osborne and Jefferson both went for over 100. So They had big days, and KJ Osborne is not usually someone. He's good. He's actually been very effective when Thielen's been hurt or Jefferson's been hurt, and he's had to step in a pinch. But to stand out like this in such a huge game when Thielen and Jefferson were there and Cook was there, everybody was there, Hawkinson was there, everybody was there and healthy, and you were that big of a part of this comeback is huge. So I give it to KJ Osborne, and it pains me to do it.
I'm going with Hasson Jenkins from the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Thought about him too.
He had 18 total tackles. He had 2 interceptions, including the overtime pick 6 of that overrated quarterback from Dallas, Dak Prescott. He was all over the field, and he became a hero in Philly. Doug Peterson also became a hero. Apparently, somebody from the Eagles called a Philly steak shop in Jacksonville and bought Doug Peterson and the staff cheesesteaks.
35 cheesesteaks and 25 fries.
Yep. So Dougie P, again, will never have to buy a drink in this city. And after beating Dallas, he's still a folklore in Philly and still a hero. So I'm going Hasson Jenkins. He might have been one of the best games ever played by a defensive back. 18 tackles, 2 interceptions, one for a touchdown. An outstanding effort by Jenkins.
And one other name I'd like to mention, which I mean, at this point, it's actually surprising that it's been this long for him to pop off like this, but we've seen moments, is Kayvon Thibodeau. He had a monster game against the Commanders as well. Monster first half. Then he has
more touchdowns than Kenny Golladay has with the Giants.
That is so terrible. Oh man! But if you play fantasy and you have IDP players or individual defensive players, Kayvon Thibodeau and Jenkins, I think one went for 40 and the other went for 50 points. They were humongous. They would have been like league winners in the playoffs, like the best time to have these guys do it. And the reason I know that is I have Kayvon Thibodeau and I sat him on the bench because he's given me no reason to play him. And then he puts up that type of game. But I digress. But that's huge for Kayvon Thibodeau to start getting that off his shoulder that he seems to have had this year. But also I think that as that defense gets better, you're just going to see Kayvon Thibodeau become even more of a monster. And by the way, Jenkins' comment shade at Urban Meyer, man, that is.
What did he say?
He said when asked about what's the difference between this year and last year, one word: coaching. That was it.
It's true. Like, they have a professional coach. So, and Doug Peterson's has done wonders for Trevor
We know
Lawrence.
He's a professional. We know he's a culture builder, and he can bring some really smart guys in to be on his staff. And he has done a great job. I think next year we're talking a very different Jaguars team. Same with the Lions. The Jags and Lions are going to be scary next year.
We'll see. They're still the Jags and Lions. You will see. Let's not get
the monkey off the shoulder, but
let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. All right, so we'll be back later this week to get you set for what was supposed to be a huge matchup on Christmas Eve between the Philadelphia Eagles and Dallas Cowboys. Hey, you know who we didn't hear from? We haven't heard from the last couple of shows. I wonder if we'll hear from him on Friday.
Our favorite Cowboys fan.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll hear from. I want to know what excuses he's got piled up for that game on Sunday. Yeah, we haven't heard from him lately. All right, so thank you all for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHarrell54. We'll be back later this week to get you set for the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas, or I should say Arlington, Cowboys. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you, and have a good night.
You want Philly?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sanders patiently running. Sanders, good cut. And another block. Sanders still going inside the 40.